Most employees ran home before midnight. But while most people raced to the exits, one woman didn't have a choice, despite the warning her billionaire boss, Rowan Maddox, had given. A rule so terrifying they whispered it through every hallway of Maddox Tower. There will be no mercy tonight if it's dark and you're still working in the building. Lena Cruz didn't run. She couldn't. Her job, her mother, her entire life depended on finishing the work someone else had dumped on her. So when Rowan found her alone in the dark, tired, frightened, and wearing yesterday's clothes, she had no idea she'd just stepped into the most dangerous night of her life, or the beginning of something she never saw coming. Before we see what happens on this No Mercy night, take a second to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who loves billionaire romance stories. It helps the channel more than you know. The emergency lights in Maddox Tower hummed with low electric tension. Midnight had arrived, and with it, the ritual everyone feared. On the ground floor, receptionist Tasha Merriweather leaned across the marble desk toward Gloria Pence, the night janitor, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Girl, you know what tonight is." Gloria's eyes widened behind her wire-rimmed glasses. "You don't mean—" "I do mean." Tasha glanced toward the elevators. "The midnight sweep. He's already in the building." Sweet mercy. Gloria clutched her cleaning cart. "I thought it was just a story." "It's real as rain." Tasha's fingers drummed nervously against the desk. "Every year, he picks one night, shuts down the main power, watches who stays, watches who tries to hide their mess in the dark. And then there's no mercy." Tasha's voice dropped even lower. "Last year, 3 department heads got walked out before sunrise. The year before, 6 managers. They say he sees everything in the dark that people think they can hide in the light." Gloria shook her head slowly. "Lord, help anyone still working upstairs." But 17 floors above them, in the records apartment, Lena Cruz wasn't thinking about mercy or midnight rituals. She was thinking about her mother. The fluorescent lights above her desk flickered once, twice, then died completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the maze of filing cabinets and computer stations in a pale, ghostly glow. Lena's fingers froze over her keyboard. She was alone, completely alone. Her manager, Derek Halston, had disappeared 6 hours ago, right after dumping a mountain of compliance files on her desk with a curt instruction. "These need to be processed by morning. Don't leave until they're done." She'd wanted to protest, wanted to explain that she had a life, a mother who needed her, a body that was running on 3 hours of sleep and yesterday's wrinkled blouse, because she hadn't had time to go home. But temps didn't protest. Temps didn't have the luxury of boundaries. So she nodded, smiled that small, defeated smile she perfected, and stayed. Now, in the half-dark, with her eyes burning and her back aching, Lena stared at the screen in front of her. 200 files left. 200 reasons she couldn't leave. 200 small barriers between her and the dialysis payment her mother needed by Friday. The building creaked. Somewhere below, a door slammed. Lena's heart kicked into a faster rhythm. She'd heard the whispers in the break room, the nervous jokes about what happened to people who stayed too late. But she dismissed them as office mythology, the kind of stories bored employees invented to make their jobs feel more dramatic. Now, alone in the dark, those stories felt less like myths and more like warnings. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Slow, deliberate, moving with the confidence of someone who owned every inch of floor they walked on. Lena's breath caught. She turned toward the door, expecting security, expecting someone to tell her the building was closing, that she needed to leave. The door opened, and Rowan Maddox stepped into the emergency lit room. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Lena's entire year's salary. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite the late hour, his jaw carved with a kind of precision that seemed almost cruel. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold. Gray, sharp, unreadable. He studied her for a long moment, taking in her wrinkled blouse, her tired face, the files scattered across her desk like evidence of a crime. Lena Cruz. His voice was low, controlled. Not a question. A statement. She stood on shaky legs. Yes, sir. I'm just finishing some files that needed. I know what you're doing. He stepped closer, his presence filling the small space between them. I want to know why you're doing it. Her mouth went dry. My manager, Derek Halston, he said these had to be done by morning. Derek Halston left his building at 6:15. Rowan's voice didn't change, but something cold entered those gray eyes. He clocked out, went home, left you here to finish work. He was paid complete. Lena's stomach dropped. She hadn't known, hadn't even suspected. I thought. Come with me. Rowan turned toward the door, clearly expecting obedience. Sir, I really need to finish. He looked back at her, and the waiter's attention made her words die in her throat. There will be no mercy tonight, he said quietly, if it's dark and you're working in the building. But mercy isn't the only thing that happens in the dark. He held out his hand, and despite every logical reason to refuse, despite her fear and confusion and exhaustion, Lena found herself reaching for it. His palm was warm, solid, steady in a way nothing else in her life had been for a very long time. Tonight, Rowan said, his fingers closing around hers, you're going to see exactly what I do when the lights go out. The elevator descended in silence. Lena stood beside Rowan Maddox, acutely aware of the space between them, or rather, the lack of it, in a confined metal box, lit only by emergency lighting. She could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, something that made her feel even more out of place than she already did. Mr. Maddox, she ventured, I don't understand what's happening. You will. He pressed a button for the 14th floor. How long have you worked for this company, Miss Cruz? 6 months. As a temp. And in those 6 months, how many nights have you stayed late? She hesitated. Most of them. Because Derek Halston asked you to. Yes. Did he ever stay with you? The question landed like a stone in still water. Lena realized she'd never questioned why Derek always left right at closing, always had somewhere urgent to be, always trusted her to handle things alone. No, she whispered. He didn't. The elevator doors opened onto the 14th floor legal department. Through the glass walls of a corner office, Lena could see Jillian Crow, the lead corporate attorney, standing over a young man who couldn't have been more than 25. The junior attorney sat hunched in his chair, his face pale, while Jillian paced like a predator. Rowan pushed open the office door without knocking. Jillian spun around, her sharp features registering for surprise, then carefully controlled panic. Mr. Maddox, I didn't realize you were still in the building. I'm always in the building on nights like this, Jillian. Rowan's voice was pleasant, almost friendly, which somehow made it more terrifying. What are you working on? Just reviewing some contracts with. At midnight, these filings of a deadline. Stand up, Rowan said quietly. The junior attorney shot to his feet like he'd been shocked. Rowan looked at him. What's your name? Peter. Peter Walsh, sir. Peter, how long have you been here tonight? Since 7 this morning, sir. 17 hours. Rowan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And when was your last break? Peter glanced nervously at Jillian. I don't remember, sir. He's learning, Jillian interjected smoothly. First-year associates need to understand the demands of... The demands of this firm, Rowan cut in, his voice dropping to something dangerously soft, do not include working junior staff into exhaustion, especially not when I can see from here that you've already billed those hours to a client under your own name. The color drained from Jillian's face. We'll discuss your employment status at 9 a.m. Rowan turned to Peter. Go home. Sleep. Report to HR tomorrow at 11. Peter practically ran from the office. Rowan gestured to Lena. Come. They moved to the next floor. Finance. Through the window of the CFO's office. Lena could see Clive Renshaw, a man she'd only ever glimpsed from a distance, hunched over his computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard with urgent, guilty speed. Rowan opened the door. Clive jerked his chair, his hand immediately moving toward the mouse. But he wasn't fast enough. Rowan crossed the office in 3 strides and gripped the back of Clive's chair, spinning it around so they were face to face. What are you deleting? Nothing. Just cleaning up old files. At midnight, in the dark, after I specifically flagged your department for audit. Rowan leaned down, his voice deadly calm. Show me your screen. There's nothing. Marcus. Rowan spoke into his phone, without breaking eye contact with Clive. 14th floor. Finance. Bring your laptop. I need an immediate data recovery on Clive Renshaw's workstation. Clive's face crumbled. Rowan, please. I can explain. Save it for the SEC investigation. They move again. Operations. Where a middle-aged supervisor named Gerald Parks had 3 interns, all college students, all unpaid, sorting inventory spreadsheets while he scrolled through his phone. Rowan didn't even speak to Gerald. He simply looked at the interns. How long have you been here tonight? The youngest, a girl who couldn't have been older than 20, answered in a small voice. Since noon, sir. Mr. Parks said we had to stay until the inventory was reconciled. And has Mr. Parks been here since noon? The 3 interns exchanged glances. He left, one of the boys said carefully, from 4 to 8, for dinner. Rowan's expression didn't change. But Lena, standing close enough to see the subtle shifts in his posture, watched something cold and absolutely unforgiving settle over him. Pack your things, he told the interns. You're done for the night. Report to HR tomorrow at 10. You'll be discussing paid positions. Gerald jumped to his feet. Mr. Maddox, I was just... Marcus will escort you out. Permanently. Floor by floor, they moved through the building. And floor by floor, Lena watched Rowan Maddox dismantle the hidden ecosystem of cruelty that had thrived in the shadows of his company. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply observed. Asked questions. Let people reveal themselves with their own words, their own choices, their own guilt. And with each office, each exposed lie, each moment of reckoning, Lena felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't cruelty. This was justice. In the elevator again, descending back toward records, Lena finally found her voice. Why did you bring me? Rowan looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something other than cold calculation in those gray eyes. Because you were afraid, he said quietly, and I wanted you to see that I don't punish fear. I punish deception. The elevator doors opened onto her floor. Derek Halston was standing at her desk, rifling through her files. Derek's head snapped up as they approached. For half a second, pure panic flashed across his face. Then, like a mask sliding into place, he rearranged his features into something resembling authority. Mr. Maddox. He straightened, smoothing his tie. I came back to check on Lena's progress. She's been having trouble keeping up with the workload lately, and I want to make sure. You left at 6:15. Rowan's voice could have cut glass. Security has your badge scan. Derek's smile didn't falter. I stepped out for dinner. Sometimes the team needs supervision even after hours. The team. Rowan repeated the word like it tasted bitter. You mean Lena, who's been working alone for the past 6 hours on files you were assigned to process. With respect, sir, Miss Cruz is temporary staff. Her role is to support departmental needs as assigned. If she felt overwhelmed, she should have communicated. I asked her to stay, Derek interrupted, his tone shifting into something defensive, because she mishandled several files last week. I needed to ensure she corrected the errors before they became a compliance issue. Lena felt the words hit her like cold water. Mishandled files, errors, compliance issues, all lies, all carefully constructed to shift blame away from him and onto her. The temp, the expendable one, the person nobody would believe over a manager with 5 years of tenure. Miss Cruz. Rowan turned to her, his expression unreadable. Is that true? Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The moment where she could nod, agree, accept the lie and keep her job, keep the paycheck, keep the insurance that covered her mother's dialysis. Or she could tell the truth and lose everything. She thought about her mother, Angela, sitting in that sterile clinic 3 times a week, machines cleaning her blood because her kidneys had given up. She thought about the medical bills stacked on their kitchen table, the eviction notice they'd narrowly avoided last month, the fragile, precarious tower of survival they'd built from nothing. One word from her could topple it all. Derek was watching her with a small, confident smile. He knew she wouldn't risk it, knew she couldn't afford to. Rowan's gray eye stayed steady on her face. Waiting, not pushing, just waiting. Lena took a breath. No, sir. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted, but it came out. The files weren't mishandled. Derek assigned them to me this afternoon at 5:30. He said they had to be processed by morning, or there would be penalties. I've been working on them since he left at 6. Derek's smile vanished. That's not. She's lying, Mr. Maddox. She's trying to cover her incompetence by... I have the assignment emails, Lena continued, her voice growing steadier. Time-stamped, and the file access logs showing I was the only person who opened them after 5:30. And... She hesitated, then pushed forward. And I have the texts. Texts? Rowan's eyes sharpened. Lena pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Pulled up the message thread with Derek. Messages demanding she stay late. Messages criticizing work she'd done perfectly. Messages implying she might not be reliable enough to keep even her temp position if she didn't prove herself by taking on extra work. Messages sent at midnight, on weekends, during hours no manager should have been contacting temporary staff. She handed the phone to Rowan. Derek laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. You think he'll believe a temp over me? I've been with this company for 5 years. I have performance reviews, commendations, relationships with every director in this building. You're nobody. You're nothing. Who do you think he's going to trust? The silence that followed was deafening. Then Rowan spoke. Marcus. The security chief appeared in the doorway, so quickly he must have been waiting just outside. Yes, sir. Show Mr. Halston the surveillance footage from 5:30 to midnight. His office, his desk, and the parking garage. Derek's face went white. Surveillance? We don't have cameras, and... We have cameras everywhere, Derek. Rowan's voice was soft, almost gentle. We've had them for 3 years. Since the last time someone claimed a subordinate was incompetent to cover their own theft. Theft? I haven't stolen anything. Pull his access logs. Rowan continued as if Derek hadn't spoken. Every file he's viewed, modified, or downloaded in the past 90 days. Cross-reference with his billable hours. And check his emails, particularly the ones he thinks he deleted, for the word temp, Lena, and over time, Marcus's expression remained neutral, but Lena caught the ghost of satisfaction in his eyes. Already pulled, sir. Been sitting in your inbox since 9 p.m. Derek's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You knew, he whispered. You already knew. I knew someone in records was exploiting temporary staff and falsifying compliance reports. Rowan stepped closer to Derek, and despite being roughly the same height, he somehow seemed to tower over the other man. I knew someone was billing the company for work they weren't doing while a 27-year-old woman worked herself sick to cover their incompetence. What I didn't know was whether Miss Cruz would have the courage to tell me the truth, even if it cost her everything. He turned to Lena. If telling the truth costs you this job, he said quietly, will you still tell it? The question hung in the air between them. And Lena realized this whole night, every floor, every confrontation, had been leading to this moment. He hadn't been testing her knowledge. He'd been testing her integrity. Yes, she said, I would. Something shifted in Rowan's eyes. Something that looked almost like relief. Marcus, escort Mr. Halston from the building. HR will contact him regarding his termination and the impending investigation into fraudulent billing. Derek's face twisted. You can't do this. I have contracts, rights. You have the consequences of your choices. Rowan's voice remained perfectly calm, which is more than you gave Miss Cruz. Marcus moved forward, one hand on Derek's elbow, guiding him firmly toward the elevators. Derek's voice echoed back through the empty floor. This isn't over. I'll sue. The elevator doors closed, cutting off his threats. Lena stood frozen, her phone still clutched in her hand, her whole body trembling with adrenaline and disbelief and something that felt dangerously close to tears. Miss Cruz. She looked up at Rowan. Honesty, he said quietly, survives my harshest night. And for the first time in 6 months, maybe for the first time in her entire life, Lena felt like someone actually saw her, not as a temp, not as a burden, but as someone who mattered. Morning broke over Dallas like a promise. Lena watched from the record's floor window as the sky shifted from black to purple to gold, the city below coming alive with traffic and light and the comfortable rhythm of a new day. She hadn't left. After Derek was escorted out, after Rowan had given her a quiet nod and disappeared into his office, after the building had fallen into that strange pre-dawn silence, she'd stayed at her desk, partly because she had nowhere else to go, partly because she still had files to finish, but mostly because she couldn't quite process what had happened, and leaving would make it real. Around 7 a.m., the building began to fill, first the early birds, then the regular staff, then, right at 8:30, a crowd gathered in the lobby as security escorted 3 people from the building. One was Clive Renshaw, the CFO, carrying a small box of personal items. Another was Jillian Crow, the predatory attorney from legal, her face rigid with barely contained fury. The third was Gerald Parks from operations, who kept his head down and moved quickly, as if speed might somehow reduce his shame. Lena heard the whispers start immediately. From Tasha at reception. Girl, did you see? 3 of them. Just gone. From Gloria near the elevators. I told you the sweep was real. From someone in accounting. Rowan had someone with him last night. A woman. I heard she was the one who exposed Derek Halston. Who is she? Some temp, I think. A temp? Working with Rowan Maddox. Was she helping him? Or was she next? The speculation spread like wildfire through the building, and with each retelling, the story grew more dramatic, more impossible, more fantastical. Lena kept her head down. She changed back into yesterday's wrinkled blouse, the one she'd been wearing when Rowan found her. She washed her face in the bathroom. finger-combed her hair, tried to make herself look less like someone who'd spent the entire night at her desk. It didn't work. When she returned to records, her desk was exactly as she'd left it. Files still scattered. Computer still humming. The same fluorescent lights that had flickered ominously last night now seemed almost cheerful in the morning sun. She sat down, pulled up the next file, started working. Around 9:30, the elevator doors opened and Rowan Maddox stepped onto the floor. He wasn't alone. Behind him walked 4 people. Marcus Dole, the security chief, Mara Ellington from HR, 2 assistants Lena didn't recognize, both carrying tablets and looking efficient. The entire floor went silent. Every head turned. Every eye followed Rowan as he moved through the space with that same controlled confidence he'd shown last night, that same absolute certainty in every step. He stopped at Lena's desk. She stood immediately, her heart kicking into overdrive. He looked at her, really looked at her, taking in her exhaustion, her wrinkled clothes, the circles under her eyes. You can go home. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. I had to finish the files, sir. Something flickered across his face. Miss Cruz, when I told you honesty survives my harshest night, I didn't mean you should work yourself into exhaustion proving it. I wanted to make sure everything was. My assistant, he interrupted quietly, cannot look unsupported. The world seemed to tilt. Your assistant? Come with me. He turned and walked toward the elevators, clearly expecting obedience. Lena grabbed her purse with shaking hands and followed, acutely aware of every eye in the department tracking her movement. In the elevator, surrounded by Rowan's entourage, she found her voice. Mr. Maddox, I think there's been a mistake. I'm just a temp. I don't have the qualifications to. Mara. Rowan looked at the HR director. Miss Cruz's new title? Mara smiled, a warm, genuine expression that seemed to say she'd been waiting for this. Compliance Support Specialist, Office of the CEO. Starting salary $85,000 annually. Full benefits, stock options. Lena's knees went weak. 85, I make $22,000 as a temp. You made $22,000, Rowan corrected. Past tense. But did I do something wrong? Is this some kind of... The elevator doors opened onto the executive level. Rowan led them through a maze of glass-walled offices and sleek modern furniture until they reached a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. This is your new desk, Rowan said, gesturing to a workspace directly outside his office door. You'll report directly to me. Your primary responsibility is ensuring compliance protocols are followed throughout the company, particularly in departments where temporary or junior staff report irregular working conditions. Lena stared at the desk, at the computer, at the nameplate that already read Lena Cruz, Compliance Support. I don't understand, she whispered. Rowan moved closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. Last night, you had every reason to lie, to protect yourself, to take the easy path. But you didn't, and in a building full of people who will say anything to save themselves. Do you have any idea how rare that is? She looked up at him and found those gray eyes watching her with something that looked almost like wonder. I need people I can trust, he continued quietly. People who will tell me the truth even when it's terrifying. People who understand that integrity isn't negotiable. He paused. People like you. But I'm nobody, Lena heard herself say. I'm just... You're the woman who survived my harshest night with your honesty intact. Rowan's voice was firm. That makes you someone I can't afford to lose. Mara stepped forward, handing Lena a new badge. Welcome to the team, Miss Cruz. Your benefits packet will be ready by end of day. Marcus will set up your security clearances. And she smiled warmly, Please go home. Get some real rest. Your official start date is Monday. As they filed out, leaving Lena standing alone in her new office, Marcus paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, the security chief said quietly, "You did good last night. Real good." Then he was gone, and Lena was left standing in front of her new desk, her new computer, her new life, holding a badge that felt like both a gift and a responsibility too large to comprehend. Through the glass wall of his office, she could see Rowan on a call, his expression focused and intense. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up, their eyes met, and he nodded, just once. A promise, a recognition, an acknowledgement that something had shifted between them in the dark. Monday morning, Lena showed up at Maddox Tower, wearing the only professional dress she owned. It was navy blue, bought on clearance 3 years ago, mended in 2 places where the seams had split. But it was clean, and it was pressed, and it was the best she had. She'd spent the weekend in a haze of disbelief and exhaustion, sleeping for nearly 20 hours straight while her mother, Angela, had fussed over her with soup and worried questions. "Mija, what happened? Why did you sleep so long? Are you sick?" Lena hadn't known how to explain, hadn't known how to put into words what had happened in the dark, or what it meant, or why everything suddenly felt different. So she just said, "I got promoted, Mama." Angela had cried, actual tears of relief and joy, and something that looked heartbreakingly like hope. Now, standing in the elevator on her way to the executive floor, Lena felt that same overwhelming mixture of emotions threatening to pull her under. The doors opened. Rowan was waiting, not in his office, right there in the hallway, as if he'd been watching for her arrival. "Miss Cruz." He looked her over, and something in his expression shifted. "Did you go home this weekend?" "Yes, sir." "Did you sleep?" "Yes, sir." "Good." He checked his watch. "We have a meeting in 3 hours. Board of Directors. I need you there to present the compliance findings from Friday night." Her stomach dropped. "Present? To the board?" "You were there. You saw what I saw. Your perspective matters." "But I don't have anything to wear to a board meeting." The words came out before she could stop them, and immediately she wanted to take them back. Wanted to seem professional, capable, like she belonged in this world. Instead, she just announced to her billionaire CEO that she couldn't afford appropriate business attire. Rowan studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, made a call. "Elena, it's Rowan Maddox. I need your studio open in 30 minutes. Full styling session." He paused. "No, not for me. For someone important." He ended the call and looked at Lena. "Come with me." They took his private elevator to the parking garage. His car, a sleek black Mercedes that probably cost more than Lena's entire apartment building, sat waiting. He opened the passenger door for her himself. The drive through Dallas was quiet. Lena kept her hands folded in her lap. Try not to touch anything. Try not to think about the leather seats or the polished trim or the casual wealth that surrounded her. "Miss Cruz." She looked over at him. "You're not in trouble," he said quietly, "and you don't need to be afraid of me." "I'm not afraid of you." "Then why do you look like you're about to bolt from a moving vehicle?" Despite herself, Lena felt a small smile tug at her lips. "Because I'm sitting in a car that costs more than I'll make in 5 years, on my way to buy clothes I can't afford, with a man who could fire me with one word." "I'm not going to fire you." Rowan's voice was firm. "And you're not buying anything." "I am." "Sir, I can't let you." "Elena's studio is where I send all my executives for board events. It's standard company protocol." He glanced at her. "You work for me now. Your appearance reflects on this company. Let me handle it." They pulled up to a boutique in the design district, all glass and steel and elegant minimalism. Inside, a woman with silver hair and sharp black glasses, greeted Rowan like an old friend. "Rowan, darling, it's been months." She turned to Lena, and her expression softened. "And this must be the someone important. This is Lena Cruz, my new compliance specialist." Rowan's voice carried a note of something Lena couldn't quite identify. Pride, maybe? She needs full professional wardrobe. Board appropriate. But he looked at Lena. "I want to see the emerald gown first." Elena's eyebrows rose. "The emerald? Rowan, that's not exactly board meeting attire." "I know, but I want to see it." 20 minutes later, Lena stood in the fitting room, staring at herself in the mirror. The gown was stunning. Deep emerald green, structured bodice with a corset design, flowing skirt that moved like water. The kind of dress princesses wore in movies. The kind of thing Lena had only ever seen in magazines. The kind of thing she had no idea how to put on. The corset was a puzzle of hooks and laces and boning. She managed to pull it on, but halfway through tightening the back, something had gone wrong. Now it was twisted, slipping, digging into her ribs in all the wrong places. She tugged at it, trying to fix it, trying to make it work. It wouldn't cooperate. Panic rose in her throat. She didn't want to ask for help, didn't want to seem incompetent, ungrateful, like she didn't belong in a place like this. A soft knock at the door. "Lena?" Rowan's voice. "You've been quiet. Are you all right in there?" She froze. She should answer, should say everything was fine, but the words wouldn't come. Another moment of silence. Then the door opened slightly. Rowan stopped in the doorway, his hand still on the handle, his eyes taking in the situation with immediate understanding. The corset had slipped halfway down her torso. Lena stood with her arms crossed over her chest, her face burning with embarrassment, fighting with fabric and failing. "It's stuck," she whispered. "I didn't want to be trouble." For a long moment, Rowan didn't move. Then he stepped into the fitting room and closed the door behind him. "Lena, look at me." She did. His expression was gentle in a way she'd never seen from him. Soft, almost tender. "Turn around." She hesitated. "Please." She turned, presenting her back to him, feeling more vulnerable than she felt even last Friday night when her entire job had hung in the balance. His hands were warm on her skin, careful, respectful, but undeniably there. He lifted the corset back into place, his fingers working through the complicated mechanics with surprising ease. "Where did you learn to do this?" She tried to make her voice light, casual. "I have 3 sisters." A pause. "They used to make me practice on dress forms when they were learning ballroom dancing." The image of a young Rowan Maddox patiently fastening corsets for his sisters made something warm bloom in Lena's chest. He tightened the laces, adjusted the boning, secured everything that had fallen apart. "I'm sorry," Lena whispered. "I should have—" "You're not trouble." His voice was low, close to her ear. "You're the only honest thing I've seen in years." His hand stilled on the final hooks. Neither of them moved. In the mirror, Lena could see them both, her in emerald green, looking like someone she didn't recognize. Him standing behind her, still touching her waist, his gray eyes dark with something that made her breath catch. Rowan. She'd use his first name without thinking. He noticed. "Say it again," he said quietly. "Rowan." His fingers tightened almost imperceptibly against the fabric. "I don't do this," he said, his voice rough. "I don't get close to employees. I don't blur lines. I built rules specifically to avoid." He trailed off. "To avoid what?" Lena whispered, feeling like this. The confession hung between them like something fragile and dangerous. Slowly, carefully, Lena turned to face him. They were close now, So close she could see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the subtle shadows stubble along his jaw, the way his pupils had dilated just slightly. "Like what?" she asked, even though she knew. Even though she felt it too. "Like I found something I didn't know I was looking for." His hand came up, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. "Like integrity and honesty and courage might be the most attractive things I've ever encountered. I'm just..." "Just what?" His thumb brushed her cheek so softly she might have imagined it. "Just the woman who told me the truth when it could have destroyed her? Just the person who worked herself to exhaustion rather than compromise her standards? Just..." His voice dropped even lower. "Just the first woman I've met in a decade who looks at my money like it's a burden instead of prize." Lena's eyes burned with sudden tears. "Your money scares me." "I know." He smiled, a small, genuine expression that transformed his entire face. "That's why I trust you." A knock at the fitting room door made them both step back. "Everything all right in there?" Elena's voice carried professional concern. "Fine." Rowan called back, his voice perfectly controlled again. "We'll be out in a moment." He looked at Lena one more time. "We can't do this," he said quietly. "Not here. Not yet. Not until you're secure in your position. And nobody can ever claim I use my power to." "I know." She did know. Understood the impossible position they were in. The optics. The gossip. The potential for disaster. "But Miss Cruz," he paused at the door, his hand on the handle, "when enough time has passed, when you're established and strong and nobody can take anything from you." He met her eyes. "I'm going to ask you to dinner, and I very much hope you'll say yes." Then he was gone, and Lena stood alone in the emerald gown, her heart racing, her mind spinning, her entire world tilted on an axis she hadn't seen coming. 3 weeks later, Lena sat at her desk outside Rowan's office, reviewing compliance reports from the operations department. Her desk, her office, her role. The transition had been surreal. Those first days, she'd walked through the executive floor, expecting someone to realize a mistake had been made, to tell her she needed to go back to records where she belonged. But nobody said that. Instead, Mara from HR had personally walked her through benefits enrollment. Marcus had set up her security clearances and shown her how to access the surveillance systems. And Rowan had treated her like exactly what her title claimed, a valuable member of his leadership team. In meetings, he asked her opinion. When executives tried to dismiss her input, he quietly redirected attention back to her. When she nervously presented her findings to the board, he'd sat beside her the entire time, a silent pillar of support. Slowly and possibly, she'd started to believe she might actually deserve this. Her mother's dialysis was covered now, fully covered. No more terrifying bills, no more juggling payment plans. They'd moved to a better apartment. Nothing fancy, but clean and safe and theirs. For the first time in her adult life, Lena had breathing room. "Miss Cruz." She looked up to find Rowan standing in his office doorway. "Could you come in for a moment?" She grabbed her tablet and followed him inside. He closed the door behind her, which wasn't unusual. They often met privately to discuss sensitive compliance issues. But something felt different today. "I have a question for you," he said, moving to stand by the windows overlooking the city. "It's not work-related." Her pulse quickened. "All right. How long have you been working in your current position?" 22 days. "And in that time, have you felt pressure from me? Have you felt like your job was contingent on anything other than your professional performance?" "No, never." He turned to face her. "Have any other employees made comments suggesting favoritism or inappropriate conduct?" "No. If anything, people seem to respect the work I'm doing." "Good." He moved closer, his hands sliding into his pockets, a gesture she'd learned meant he was carefully controlling himself. "Because I've waited 22 days to ask you something. And I need to know that you feel completely free to say no without any consequences whatsoever." Lena's breath caught. "Ask me. Have dinner with me. Tomorrow night. Not as your employer. Not as CEO. Just as Rowan." The world seemed to narrow to just the two of them, standing in the morning light, the city humming below. She should be careful. Should consider the implications, the optics, the potential complications. But when she looked at him, really looked at him, she saw the man who'd shown her what integrity looked like in action. The man who'd given her a chance when nobody else would have. The man who'd fastened her dress with careful hands and told her she was honest in a world full of lies. "Yes," she said simply. Something in his expression shifted. Relief, joy, something raw and unguarded that made him look younger, more human, less like an untouchable billionaire, and more like a man who'd just been given a gift he hadn't expected. "Yes, yes, Rowan, I'll have dinner with you." He smiled, a real smile, full and genuine and transformative. "Tomorrow then, 7 o'clock. I'll pick you up." "Should I? Is there a dress code? Should I?" "Just be you." His voice was soft. "That's all I want." She turned to leave, her hand on the door handle, when his voice stopped her. "Lena." She looked back. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that night. Since I found you alone in the dark. Too honest for your own good. Too brave to know when to run." Her throat tightened. "For what it's worth, I haven't stopped thinking about you either." She left before she could say anything else, before she could cross lines they'd worked so hard to maintain. But that evening, as she was packing up to leave, Marcus appeared at her desk. "Mr. Maddox asked me to give you this." He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a note in Rowan's precise handwriting. "If Lena Cruz ever calls this building in the dark, any hour, any reason, any circumstance, put her call through to me immediately. No exceptions. This is a standing order effective immediately and indefinitely. R. Maddox." Below that, in different handwriting, Marcus's, she realized, was a single line. "We take care of our own. Miss Cruz, welcome to the family." Lena held the note against her chest, feeling tears prick at her eyes. She'd survived the harshest night. She'd told the truth when lying would have been safer. She'd been seen, valued, and given a chance she'd never dreamed possible. And now, standing in the empty office as the sun set over Dallas, she realized something profound. She wasn't afraid of the dark anymore, because she knew exactly who would be there to meet her in it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with someone who loves billionaire romance with real emotional depth. Your support helps us create more stories like this. Until next time, stay honest, stay brave, and remember, integrity always survives the darkest nights.